I also want to share something with you. First of all, TJ, the moment I met you, exactly the same. It's like the moment I met Kathleen Murphy, who is the former clinical director of Breathe Life Healing Center. And the woman has magic. You have magic. And I met her at West Coast Symposium, and I'd never seen her before in my life, so I didn't know how she normally looked. And she was like wearing a navy blue skirt with a matching little jacket with like a button shirt with a ruffled tie. And I thought, oh, who is this person? She's so interesting. And I introduced myself to her, and she said, oh my God, you're Mackenzie Phillips. And I was like, I know. And then we looked at each other, and I burst into tears. And she said, this is what she said to me. She said, she put her hand on my chest, and she said, did you know that you can tune a heart? And I fell in love. Not in be-love, but I fell in love with her. And I later in my I was working at a different facility at the time. I later ended up what I like to call sitting at the feet of the master for almost 7 years, working with Kathleen Murphy and going to her groups and learning. So thank you for being my champion, and thank you for being Cowboy's dad, and thank you for being my friend. Not thank you for scheduling me at the very end of a Friday. I did choose it. Oh, see, what do I know? What do I know about myself? You would think that at almost 63 years old, I would have this self-awareness that I chose this. But this brings up a very interesting question. Don't you think this is like almost like a therapeutic opportunity to say, wow, I chose this? And this also brings up what I think Matt said, something about intersectionality. And I love talking about intersectionality, that out of the billions of people on this planet, we all ended up in this room on this day, you guys in that chair, me standing on this stage, and it may seem random, but it's probably not. But first I want to tell you something, which is what I started with, and then I didn't tell you that something, but now I'm going to tell you. I have a rare neurological disorder that is called mal de débarquement. Has anybody ever heard of mal de débarquement syndrome? Okay. It's very rare. And I can equate it to addiction in a weird way, but first I'm going to tell you what it is. It is a vestibular syndrome that is caused by, sorry, I have to sit down. Standing on this stage is very activating to my syndrome. It's called disembarkation sickness. I used to work cruise ships many years. I was in a band. I was saying, I'm up on a stage like this on a cruise ship. And I would get off the ship after like 3 weeks on a cruise ship before I got sober. And I would feel sort of, rocky for a day. And then it would go away. And then over the years, I went on a 7-day cruise to promote my second book, which is called Hopeful Healing, Essays on Managing Recovery and Surviving Addiction. It was my little book that could, I wasn't on Oprah the day it published like my first book, it wasn't like that. It was this just little heart book that I wrote because I wanted people to have like access to a handbook. Like one of the chapters is about leaps of faith, and it's called Leaping Like Kierkegaard. And I wanted people to have this little handbook where they could say, God, today I'm feeling such grief and guilt and shame and regret. And that's page 64. Oh, let's read that shit, But I was on this cruise, and I was, I'm going to be 63 in less than a month. So this was maybe, 5 or 7 years ago. I got off the ship, And I thought, oh, this always happens. It'll go away in a few days. 3 months, feeling a persistent, constant sensation of internal rocking, bobbing, and swaying. So it went away after 3 months, and I thought, well, that was kind of weird, but that's a one-off. It's never going to happen again. Then I went on an 11-day cruise. I came off, and I never got my land legs back for 9 months. And then I travel a lot, I speak a lot, I do a lot of that kind of thing, and I had like back-to-back flights. Like you fly in, I'm in Mississippi, I'm speaking, then I have to fly back to LA because I have to do this thing, but then I'm flying to Georgia to speak for Willing Way. Oh, are they in Georgia? No, they're not. Wherever Willing Way is, I spoke for them. And after this back and forth, it's been over a year that I have been on the ship. And it is something that as I walked onto this stage, I was activated beyond belief. And I was afraid I might be, Jeremy. That's why I said leave a chair. Usually I have is it a lectern? It's called a lectern, right? Or a podium, whatever the heck it is. Actually, it's a word that means both things, the thing you can lean on. And so I have been to NYU. I have been into a study at Mount Sinai in New York. I've gone to the Dizzy and Vertigo Institute of Los Angeles, which doesn't take insurance, by the way. Spent thousands of dollars trying to retrain my brain that I am on solid ground. When my eyes are open, I can orient myself, right? When my eyes are closed, which I won't demonstrate for you because people get frightened, my whole body rocks and sways. Now, I'm a woman in long-term recovery, and I can actually liken this to what we go through when we're trying to get sober. Like all the years of shooting speedballs and doing this and running around and living in chaos and all that kind of stuff adapted my brain, my body, my Mac, my me to a way of being. And then when it was time to not be that way anymore, I could not reorient myself to the way I wanted to be. And so I am daily reminded, hourly, every time I stand up for the last year plus, reminded in some small way of what the people we're trying to help are going through. Because orienting yourself in the new scene that you're in is very, very difficult. And as I sit here, really, honestly, I feel, it sounds so weird, and please don't put this on YouTube because I feel like I'm in a hammock, right? And it's distressing, and the only time I feel relief is if I'm driving a car or I'm on a plane, or I haven't gone back on a cruise ship because I don't want to mess with that. But it's a little bit. Should I stand up? I'm going to. It's a little bit like addiction, like, okay, so now I'm in this paradigm where I am loaded all the time, and I live this kind of life, and it's become my reality, and then I walk through this door into this scene of treatment or whatever that new scene may be it therapy, be it 12-step rooms, be it Dharma, be it the Eightfold Path, I don't know, whatever it may be. And I cannot orient myself to this new way of being. And it takes time. There's an old song, time, love, and tenderness. It takes time, love, and tenderness. I can't remember who sang it. Do you remember? Thank you. So it's not that old. Well, for some of you, it's really old. For me, it's not that old. And that's something I wanted to tell you because as I walked up on the stage, I realized that my syndrome, whatever you want to call it, was severely activated. And I want to also tell you this. The main treatment for it is benzodiazepines. You want to talk about an evil laugh? Did I just have an evil laugh? Because I can't take benzos. So, I mean, unless it gets to a point where I'm walking with ski poles, which many people who have this syndrome, they have it for many, 30, 40 years, and they have it their entire lives, and it progresses. Oh, it's progressive, too. Just like addiction, it progresses over time. I might consider it, but at this point, I just wanted to let you know if I seem a little like, whoa, the carpet is patterned, there's bright lights, I'm standing on a box, that's why. Oh, and also because yesterday morning I had IV sedation, dental surgery. So there's a lot of different things that are contributing to my presentation with you today. But I wanted to take a moment to talk about the B, the bisexuality. When I was a little girl, I mean a very little girl, I loved girls. I loved them so much. And I wanted to play doctor with the girls. And I was curious about the little girls, and I loved them. I mean, okay, so I would play spin the bottle with my brother's friends and kiss the boys, but I really loved the girls. And I got the crap beat out of me. I got the belt, I got the brush, and I got the hanger for liking little girls. So I'm pretty sure I got the gay beat out of me when I was a little kid. Now I'm shaking because I'm saying this from the stage, but you know, and it went on into my teen years, and there was a very famous Academy Award-winning child, you can all figure out who it is, who said, "Oh, look, here comes the lesbo." I'm like, okay, I can't be this. I can't be it. I can't be free because I will either get the crap beaten out of me or I will be called, very derisively, here comes the little lesbo, right? So I dated boys and had girlfriends, and you know, and so when I jumped up for the B's, I don't know who the hell I am. I know I'm Shane's mom. I know I was married to Mick for many years, and he's my best friend. He's married to somebody else right now, and not right now. He's married to somebody else, and will be. But he's a lovely human being, but I am a conflicted soul. When I was that little girl who was getting the crap beaten out of her, all for my own good, by the way. That's what they would say, right? This is for your own good. I had extreme night terrors. I would wake up screaming. My mom told me once that she found me like crouched by the side of the toilet in the guest bathroom in my little, pink nightgown with the ribbons on it, the kind that you get on Christmas morning, that kind of thing. And I was like, this is going to sound so weird, but I only have 148 watermelons and I need 149, and if I don't find one more, they're going to kill me. These are the things. I was frightened all the time. I never knew if I was safe, and I had these huge blocks of blankness. I wrote High on Arrival, but if you've read it, you can see that it sort of skips around, and there are fill-ins that I got from journals that I had for years, and different bits and pieces that people would tell me. And I always want to ask people who've known me a long time, what was I like as a girl? But I'm afraid, so I don't. And so when the mamas and the papas were becoming the Mamas and the Papas, and my dad was Papa John from the Mamas and the Papas, they all went to the Virgin Islands, where that song, John and Mitchie were getting kind of itchy just to leave the folk music behind. Well, I was there. I was 5. I was the only child. I lived in a pup tent alone on the beach. And I remember, and I'm not trying to, God, I just don't want you to think that I'm trying to tell you my story of woe so you'll feel sorry for me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to give you a baseline. Forget the framework. Okay, so my dad was a rock star. Okay, so we had a chef, but there was no food, right? My dad was fucking the housekeeper, the framework around it. I mean, it was sort of like this broken, weird, trippy thing. But I'm trying to give you a baseline of how a child might come to you and you might not know, layers, things that live below the level of consciousness, layers, these layers. And I'm not talking about peeling the onion, although that's a perfect, you could say, yeah, I'm peeling the onion, right? But there are layers beneath layers beneath layers beneath more layers that, I guess I'm just going to use the phrase, that's complex trauma, right? Repeated events that reinforce the lack of safety, and that I always thought there is something deeply wrong with me. And I'm talking like age 7. And everybody knows it, but they're treating me like I'm normal. Why are they treating me like I'm normal when I know there's something deeply, inherently wrong with me? Well, I'd been getting messages that there's something deeply, inherently wrong with me from the brush and the belt and the hanger, right? So I'm not telling these stories without any plan that I'm going to step back and let you know what happened and what I figured out. I'm not just puking up my trauma on you. But I will say that to quote Bessel van der Kolk, the body keeps the score. There are parts of me, I've had Kathleen do sensory motor psychotherapy on me, which is something that is absolutely mind-blowing. Think about a time where you felt fill in the blank, right? And tell me what's happening in your body as you recall it. She's not asking me to tell her the story. She's asking me to recall it, and in the recalling of it, tell her the bodily sensations that I'm experiencing as the result of remembering. That's pretty powerful stuff. So she was able to work with me on a lot of that stuff, and I'm so grateful, and I love her so much. But I was a frightened child. I was like, am I safe now? I don't want to appear weird, but am I safe now? Am I okay? Then I got sent to a Waldorf school. First I went to Summerhill. So there was just no rules. I was a Summerhill kid, and then I was a Waldorf kid. And I was a Waldorf kid, and we made our own books, and we made things out of beeswax, and we learned how to play the recorder. And we literally bound our own books, right? It was the most beautiful way for a kid like me to grow up. I felt safer. And I loved it. It was the place that it held me, right? It held me. And then I went on an audition because I somehow, like, I don't know, my stepmother Michelle thought could be a really good actor, and I went on an audition. Oh, by the way, I was smoking weed every day at school in the 5th grade. Every day. Every single day at school in the 5th grade. And one day I actually stole a bunch of cocaine from my dad's house in this cool little silver, like a suitcase with a little chain and a spoon on it. And I brought it to school. And I was in the 5th or 6th grade. And my best friend was Lisa Coleman of Lisa and Wendy from Prince's band. We all went to school together. We were all Waldorf hippie kids. And we got caught with it, but because it fell over. And I said, oh, no, it's just the chalk that we use for the uneven bars. And Mr. Brousseau was like, oh, well, stop spilling it. I was like, okay, we won't spill it anymore. I'm like, don't spill that stuff. It's hard to get. But I started auditioning, and I auditioned for this movie called American Graffiti. And I had only played Santa Claus in the school play, ever. I had never acted. I wanted to be like the nasty girl with the electric guitar and the cowboy boots on stage. And so we put together a band at school, like in the 5th grade. And because most of our parents were in the entertainment industry, we were able, these young kids, to take it to the Troubadour on a hoot night here down in LA. And there was a guy there who was casting a movie, and he said, would you like to audition? And I was like, oh my God, that would be like so cool. I was 12, you know. And apparently I auditioned for this movie, another blank, have absolutely no recollection of doing it. Although when the 40th anniversary Blu-ray came out, they had my screen test. And I looked at it and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't remember doing it. I don't remember any of it. And what happened was I got the job. And then this is a story that has a purpose. Most stories do. And I got off the plane in San Francisco, and George Lucas and whomever came to meet me at the plane, and I was 12. Fast forward, I'm 39. I've got a young man who's my son. We are at the Directors Guild of America for a screening of American Graffiti. And Shane, my son, was like, Mom, you were a real dork when you were a kid. Then he fell asleep watching the movie. But I was on a panel afterwards, and Gary Kurtz, who was the executive producer of the movie, came up to me and he said, do you remember when you got off that plane? And you were there holding your little suitcase, and you were all alone, and we said, where's your mother? You're 12. And all of a sudden, my breath started to catch. My hands started to shake. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, your mom just put you on a plane alone, and you got off the plane, and you didn't have a guardian. He said, why do you think you lived with me and my family for the whole time we were making the movie? Side note, they were Quakers. It was weird. They were lovely. We held hands. We sang songs at dinner. The mom wore a bonnet. But he's telling, they were lovely people. He had like the Quaker goatee and everything. He was telling me this story, and my body remembered every second of it. But to this day, I have literally no recollection of it. I remember living with them. I just don't remember why. I just thought, oh, this is what I was supposed to do. And so years later, when I read about how the body keeps the score, I began to understand a lot of these, I'm going to use the word mechanisms of trauma, the way it presents, the way the fear, the constant thinking I'm not safe. You know, like Kathleen would say, wow, what do you mean you're not safe? There's no saber-toothed tiger in this room, you know. And when I was little, I said to my mom, I said, Mommy, I want to be a fireman. And she said, honey, only boys can be firemen, so you can't be a fireman. I said, okay, then I want to be a doctor. And she said, I'm sorry, honey, but only boys can be doctors. I said, okay, then I want to be a nun. And she said, well, honey, you can be a nun, but you'll never have a boyfriend because you'll have to be married to Jesus. And I was like, I walked away thinking, okay. And I was probably 7. And then I remember sitting at my dad's house and feeling very kind of like this is cool, but what the heck is happening? Because there were grown men and people using drugs openly in front of me, and people were having sex, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what drives behavior? What makes people do the things that they do? What makes people think it's okay? Because I'm a little kid and I'm sitting here and I don't know how to get away, and I don't know what to do. So what drives behavior? What makes people do the things they do? And the next thing I knew was that I wanted to be what apparently it was termed as in the early 60s, an abnormal psychologist. And I said that to my mom. And she said, well, you probably aren't going to be able to do that. But I understand how behavior fascinates you because of the things that you have experienced. And then the acting train rode into town. I rode that train in the direction it was going for many, many, many years. Very successful. Should have been going to treatment at like 15, but, you know, adolescent treatment, not so much going on back then. So I ended up going to treatment 11 times. And, I mean, you know, here's the deal. Do I think that my dad held newborn me in my arms and said, oh, goody, a girl child. I will groom her, and eventually I will drug her, and I will have sex with her repeatedly. No, I don't think that's how it went down, but that's exactly what happened. And I think that I learned many years later about narcissism, for which there is no pill. I'm like, isn't there a pill for that? Like, there's a pill for everything. No, there's no pill for narcissism. And the perfect storm of undiagnosed, unrecognized, untreated mental health disorders that ran deep in my family. Everyone's fine. Everyone's fine. What do you fucking mean? The house is on fire. You know, it's literally not on fire, but it felt like it was. Every day. Lots of fear. Lots of stuff going on. And I don't know when it started, but I know when I knew it was happening. And I was like, what? God, please send me back into a blackout. Dear God, please make this not be real. And I went back into a blackout, and I woke up elsewhere. And I was like, that couldn't have really happened. That didn't really happen. That's not what happened. And I told myself that story for a very long time. I won't go deeper into that, but I do know that I felt absolutely complicit. We're talking about giving away shame. Where are you? That's right, you had to go. I remember, I understand. I'm not talking to myself, and I'm not crazy. Maybe a little. But I carried the shame of my perpetrator for so many years because I thought the power dynamic was so off that I felt like I had to do what was happening. I had to be who was, and believe me, I have been trained to, like a trained monkey, to be somebody else, to be whoever you need me to be, and it's taken me many years to come to that place where I I'm still not entirely there yet, and that's entirely okay. But things, like, there's no, like a hurricane warning, for a life-changing event. There's no warning system that comes to say, hey, shit's about to get real, you better pull it together. Someone's about to die. You're about to get a debilitating neurological, it's not that debilitating, but it feels it sometimes. Like there's no early warning system for these things. So we, if you be like me, as they say, have to be prepared. Have to be, what do I call it? Self-intervening. How am I feeling? Where am I out of balance? What's going on within me? What do I need? How do I identify my needs? Who do I trust to talk to my needs about? Because these events don't announce themselves. And when my father died, I was at his bedside, and I thought that I would be free. And I wasn't. And I keened, and I wailed. The caged bird does sing. But this caged bird sang a song of desperation. The only person that could ever tell me why is gone. Now what will I do? There's nobody left. I relapsed very publicly. I was arrested. I went back to treatment. But what this caged bird learned was that I already had everything I needed. I already knew everything I needed to know. All the answers were within my grasp. If I trusted my community, if I trusted my advisors, if I continued. I know people have to leave. I know you love me. I love you too, Sean. Goodbye. And that's so, as I'm listening to you do your panel, I hope I turn my phone on audible and I'm not chatting on forever. No, I'm good. As I listen to you talk about you have everything you already need, it took me 40 some years to figure that out because I thought the answer was within another person. I thought my dad had the answer. I thought my mom had the answer. I thought my girlfriend had the answer, who was a secret. I thought my bad news boyfriend had the answer, who didn't know about my girlfriend. I thought the answer was elsewhere. I didn't know I had it. I didn't know. I thought that if I got a haircut and went to the dermatologist and got my teeth cleaned and bought some new clothes. And in the old days, it was put on a few pounds. These days, it's take off a few pounds. But I thought if I did those things, they would heal me. They would make me okay. I didn't understand. And I didn't have a person or a community or people that helped me to understand that all I needed, I already had within me. God was within me, is within me. My spiritual path was within me. And then I got into this thing of like, well, what have I done? Karmically, what have I done to have to live this life? And then I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. You chose this one. You chose this one. Because it's going to help you on your next journey. And then on your next journey. And then maybe one day the journeying will be over and you can just sit at the feet of the master, a different master, or maybe it'll be the same master, who knows. I remember I was on my way to an end, believe me. My son had moved out and I had moved the drug dealers into his bedroom, and I was slamming speedballs day and night after having had 10 years of absolutely brilliant sobriety, yet I wore my 10 years like a big book on my lapel. Like, I got 10 years, so what the hell do I need y'all for, right? And I relapsed, and it took me years. Like, everyone always told me, oh, you're going to go from A to Z in like 5 minutes. You're going to relapse, and then you're going to have a needle in your arm the next day. Well, that's not how it went down. It took about 6 years. But I was on my way to New York because, this is so weird. Apparently, Rachel Ray's favorite TV show was One Day at a Time growing up, right? And it was Rachel Ray's 40th birthday, and they were recreating the set of One Day at a Time on the Rachel Ray set and flying all of us in. Meanwhile, the night before the flight, I'm sitting there cooking it up, doing what I do, going, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give them. I mean, I was literally thinking, I'm going to die in here, or someone's got to save me. Who knew it would be the LAPD? I did not. But I'm alive. So I'm going through security at LAX with my fancy first class ticket, and this giant cop, Marion, I love you. I know you have a flight to catch. Hey. Fuck you too. Bye. I love that girl so much. I love her so much. I saw her today and I went, and she went, yeah. And then I texted her, I fucking love you so much. So this giant lady cop, I can't stand up. This giant lady cop goes, Miss Phillips, follow me. And they put me in the corral because my pants with the cargo buckle had set off the thing. So then I'm thinking, okay, how do I get the 8-ball and the 3 grams of heroin out of this pocket and somewhere else really quick before? So I put it in my waistband while they weren't watching, and then they scanned me, and not only did this go off, this went off. And then I was like, oh, I have a belt buckle on my underwear. She goes, you have a belt buckle on your underwear? And I'm like, yes, some underwear have decorative items on them. And she's like, yeah, right. Sit down. So I walk over and I sit down. And apparently during the walk and the sit down, poking out from under my sock was a bag of dope. And she said, are you holding? And I said, no, of course. What do you mean am I holding? Of course I'm not holding. She goes, look down. And I looked down, and I can tell you that my first thought was, I am somebody's mother. I am somebody's mother. Shane doesn't know. He's 21. I'm 48. I've been sober for 10 years in the past. And then she says, Miss Phillips. And then I'm like, oh, Miss Phillips. Maybe they're not going to arrest me. You have the right to remain silent. I'm like, oh, God, no. And then I'm chained to not chained, but handcuffed to a bench at the Van Nuys Police Department. And I am thinking, well, and there are people walking by going, isn't that the chick from One Day at a Time? And I'm thinking, well, if addiction, substance use, whatever it is that I have, this thing, is like a tumor that can be egg-sized, I missed a spot. And then, my son said, don't bail her out. Leave her in jail overnight. The next day, my beautiful sister Bijou, who is like so stunningly gorgeous, it's like, how are we in the same family? She comes to visit me through the glass, and I've got apparently a carton of milk and a jail burrito in my hand, and I'm shaking my jail burrito at her, going, you better bail me out of here. And she tells the story much better than I do. And she said to me, Mac, look at you. You've got a jail burrito. Anyway, I was eventually bailed out, and I was sent to treatment for yet another 6 months. And I came home and walked into my bedroom, which had become a shooting gallery, attended by one human and dogs, pugs and this human. And my son said, Mom, I tried to clean it up, but I just, you're going to have to do this yourself. Talk about clear away the wreckage of your past, give freely of what you find, and join us. If you know, there was blood on the ceiling, there was blood on the walls, there were dirty needles everywhere. It was just a bad thing. And I looked at my hands, and I went, don't feel so bad, Phillips. This isn't anybody's fault but yours. These hands have held a baby. These hands have held a needle. These two things can exist in the same human at the same time. I remember once I was at an open house. I used to like have house envy and go to open houses. And I walked into this open house, and I was sober. This was after what I'm just telling you. And there was like this gorgeous pair of Chanel shades sitting there. And I thought, oh, I could totally put those in my bag and nobody would know. And then my head went, oh, hello, criminal self. Hello, criminal Mac. I have the capacity for the deepest compassion, the greatest love. But I will also have the capacity to steal your drugs and help you look for them. And thieve. And I have to understand that just because I'm sober and many years have gone by, that little bing ain't gonna pop up every now and then. It's my job to go, oh, hello, there you are. Not today, motherfucker. Pardon my French, but not today. And so these parts of me, they're there. And I'm not talking IFS, although I do love IFS. I do love parts work. We do a lot of parts work at Breathe Life Healing Center, where I'm the director of referral relations. I failed to mention that. I'll never say it again. I'm not here to promote my program, but I do love my program. And so I had to come home and clean up. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be 50 soon. And unless I'm some sort of anomaly, I will not live as long as I already have. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? And I remembered that little girl who was so curious about what made people do the things they do. And I went back to school and to become a counselor. And I worked at a facility, which I will not name. And then I was at a conference and I met Brad Lamb. And he's just one of the cutest, funniest, most odd, playful, delightful, brilliant people I've ever known. And he said, one day we're going to work together. And I went, oh, yeah. Meanwhile, I'm looking at his bow tie and thinking he's probably the coolest human being on the earth. And then the next conference, he offered me a job. And out of a misplaced sense of loyalty to my current employer, I turned him down. And then about a week later, my ethical panties were in such a bunch that I could no longer continue. And I texted Brad and I said, if you ever offer me a job again, I will have a very different answer for you. And within 2 seconds, he wrote back, well, 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 what a lovely thing to have on a Monday morning. And I put in my notice and, first I had to meet with Kathleen and Deb. Talk about, working for women and working in a company that is not only LGBTQIA plus owned and operated, but is run by women. It is the greatest joy of my life to have worked my way up through the ranks, carrying a caseload, working, doing groups not a million, but it felt like a million times a week, and becoming a manager, becoming a director, becoming a part owner over the 7 years that I have had the absolute honor to work at Breathe Life Healing Center. Oops, I said it again. I'm sorry. I have, when someone goes, yeah, but your story, I'm like, everybody has a story, and everybody's story is important. My story, the only reason my story seems different is because of the framework in which it occurred. That's the only frickin' reason it seems like, whoa, is because it occurred within that 70s, 60s rock star, glam, whatever you want to call it. I was a TV star, whatever you want to call it. But if you take away all of that, it's your story. My story is your story. I'm you, you're me. Like it's just the clear as day to me. It's just as clear as day to me. But if I had to live it, then I believe I had to live it for a purpose, which was to have a greater platform to be able to help more people. Because it gives me an opportunity to reach a wider audience. And so for that, I'm grateful. Look, I'm a 12-step girl. I went to Alina Lodge. Anybody know about Alina Lodge? I was there for 9 months once. But I know for sure, and I know this at the deepest part of my soul, that there are many ways to the top of a mountain. The destination is the same. Need I say more? I don't care how you get there. I don't care how you get there, just get there if you can. There are many ways to the top of the mountain. This is one of them. And if you think that it's I can either do this, I could go with this, or I could go with that, or I could go with this. Everything is a song to me. I think I did some damage. But really and truly, they walk hand in hand. And anyone who says that they don't is being a purist in such a way that is almost like contempt prior to investigation, which is in the spiritual appendix of the big book. The only thing that keeps a person ignorant is not ignorant, because I'm not saying anybody's ignorant, but it's contempt prior to investigation. That mountain is beautiful. That mountain is tall. There's a lot of goats hanging out on those very, very, windy paths up there, and there's a lot of bumps and things on the way up. But once you get to the top, man, it's good. It's good. It's good being free. Kathleen always used to ask us, how free do you want to be? Well, as free as absolutely possible. Well, then, do it. Because it's accessible. It's there. all the time, all the time. It's always available, always available. But it's hard for people who walk in the door to hear that that freedom and that joy and that ability to walk free is literally always accessible. It's always there. So thank you. We have a few minutes for questions. I hope I was able to tell you a story that had clinical meaning and that brought some joy and also some ability, some opportunity for introspection at a later date. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Dano, you're a hero for staying till the very last moment. I love you for so many reasons. Bye. Does anybody have any questions? I fucking love it. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I got to tell you, I once had the opportunity to meet Nikki Sixx, who wasn't very nice to me, by the way. But I know. But I don't think he knew who I was, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he would have been nicer to me if he knew I was, like, famous, which is a word that I abhor. But sometimes I have to use it. I went up to him and I was like, I got to tell you, I got a copy of Heroin Diaries, and it's got my blood all over it. Like, because I would be shooting up, nodding out, reading Heroin Diaries about Nikki Sixx getting sober, insane in the closet with, like, machetes and AR-15s. And he wasn't as amused as I was. I love your story. Maybe one day I'll get to meet Nikki Sixx again and go, so, my name is Mackenzie Phillips, and I was on a TV show, and but I still have that copy of Heroin Diaries because it reminds me of where I came from. Thank you. Yes, Matt. My intersectionality friend.
I'm running into clients and in myself the situation of like I've lost 3 jobs because I'm making mistakes while I'm still learning and not having the space to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm meeting clients that are like making mistakes and I can't do it, and I'm wondering, because I sense a lot of like different roads to the top, and you're saying like how to talk through on the client level but also on the work level, like how to like this journey of like I'm learning and offering and learning, offering and then client learning and gift.
Yep. Intern. You need to intern under someone who is going to I interned under Michael Doyle, who used to have a different name, who like I was like a yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now it's yes, sir, no, sir. But to the same person. But like literally, I would be in the session observing, and then I would be told, go write the note, and then bring it to me. I would bring the note, and they'd be like, what are you, writing a fucking novel? I need a clinical note, right? And so I'd go back and I'd do it again. And I had to, through trial and error, learn from someone who was already an LMFT. And I had to be the errand girl. Like, I couldn't just step straight into having a caseload, I had to learn by making mistakes before my job was on the line. You see what I'm saying? Before I was going to get canned for screwing up. And there's no money in interning, generally, but it will make you, and let's not even talk about getting familiar with electronic medical records and learning Kipu or Best Notes. Did anybody ever have to do Best Notes? Oh my God. Like those are skills that, because when I went to school, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be so great. I'm just going to be doing this. Yeah, man, no. Yeah, and then, you know, my thing is, okay, that's fine, but I'm here to disrupt those patterns in you. I'm not here to buy into them, right? So I was looking forward to doing that kind of stuff. Okay, 30% of it is that. 70% of it is documentation, right? And that was like that's like I audit charts, I resolve billable hours, I am constantly, auditing charts, and, and believe me, I have to tell you, I have skills that as an actress, I never would have used and had no idea that I had. I mean, I'm way smarter than I ever knew, and I'm way more capable than I ever believed, but I had to put my pride in my back pocket and have someone say, no, you're wrong, do it this way. Or not even that, maybe sometimes that, but give me your best effort. And then they would say, that's great for a best effort, but I feel like I'm reading their life story as opposed to a DAP note. I need data, I need assessment, and I need plan. You've got the assessment in the data and the data in the assessment. You're cool on the plan. You know what I mean? So those are really hardcore things that one needs to know before one can step into this thing. And if you find yourself coming up against that over and over again, get an internship with someone who's going to take the time to teach you those bits and pieces that are so frustrating. Because if you don't document it, it literally didn't happen. Come closer to the mic, my friend.
I think for me, it's like missing socially, like missing like with peers, or getting too creative.
Oh, well, getting too creative could be a boundary issue. Sometimes that is a boundary issue where, you've got great ideas, but not yet. Not yet. Have a boundary. I'm here to do this. This is my current position. I need to stay within the framework of my job description. And when I have great ideas, bring them to the team. Don't start, providing your new creative ideas in session to the client, right? Because we all have to be boundaried, we have to be ethical, we have a standard by which we have to operate, right? And your creativity is probably going to end up being one of your strongest suits, but write, edit, write again, and then practice, and then sit down with your supervisor and say, hey, I've been working on this idea. Don't just try it out on a client. Am I right? Okay. I think I'm right. Thank you, Matt. Anybody else? I know everyone, it's Friday night. Oh, it's 4:30. What time is it? 4:30. That's another song. By Embarrassingly, the Spin Doctors. Sorry. Does anybody else have any more questions? Jeremy, you're approaching as if to tackle me off the stage, and I appreciate that. Okay, will you come and help me down? Thank you. Walking around everywhere else, I was fine. God bless you. I love you all. Thank you so much.